Okay, so we got some blackout tattoos today. I think we got some good and bad, or at least one bad one. I can see already, so let's get to it.
All right, so this one says blackout sleeve help. Hey Remy, I decided to get a blackout sleeve to cover the old sleeve I had. It was a sleeve I got a long time ago from a friend who just needed to practice. No big deal.
Up front, I would say if your friend needs to practice, he can practice on your leg or his own fucking arm. Don't let people practice on your arm.
Yeah.
I really hate these apprentice arm sleeve things.
It was time to get rid of it. I made a mistake that many seem to make. A guy I know does amazing realism. Because of this, I assumed that he'd do fine with blackout. After seeing a good handful of your videos, I've come to realize these things don't go hand in hand. Anyway, after healing up, the shedding process was over. A lot of scarring became visible. I understand that this is going to hinder whatever goes over top, but my question for you is my second shot of having a decent sleeve fucked? What sort of sleeve would you recommend? May work over top of this scar farm. Thanks in advance. P.S. That's one pass and 22 days of healing. Oh.
Yeah, let's have a look at this thing. So yeah, as I always say, I've said it, I don't even know how many times on here, but people never listen. Realism is easier to do than blackout. It just is. And it's not close either.
Yeah.
We have every single artist at this shop has done realism.
Yep.
And we have two artists technically that do blackout.
Yes.
Rick doesn't do it very often.
And
but
a couple of us would love to be doing blackout.
You'll fuck people up if you don't know what you're doing.
I can speak for myself on this matter that I know that I am technically not good enough at color packing to do blackout.
Within your first year, you did several realistic animals and portraits and shit.
Yeah.
Zero blackouts.
No blackouts.
Right? And I'm still fairly confident that if you were to do one today, you would have problems.
Oh, yeah. I know 100% that I do not pack color good enough to do it.
Also important to note, you've already done a color on black tattoo on me.
I have.
Right? So, just so you guys understand, it's easier to do color on black than it is to do blackout.
Yes.
Right? I want everyone to understand that just because there's a picture there doesn't mean that it's harder to do than something that's just black. The amount of times I have people say, well, anyone can do that, it's just black. You're a bonehead and you're hurting people.
Yeah.
You are the reason why these are happening, and it should be illegal to say that.
When you are choosing someone to do blackout, and you cannot find someone who has done a blackout, your first choice shouldn't be a black and gray realism artist. You should be looking for that trad artist that's doing big,
someone who's done
old color,
old school tribals.
Yeah,
we'll have a lot of black fill. Healed. You want to see healed pictures. You see a lot of fresh blackouts.
I've done tribal.
You see a lot. Well, it's not as, there's some stuff in there that will help, but it's not as much black.
There's definitely a difference.
But you'll see a lot of healed or fresh blackouts and not a lot of healed blackouts on Instagram. If they're not showing any healed ever, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a big problem because a fresh blackout will always look decent. If you look at them all the time, you'll be able to tell that there's probably something wrong. But
if you find someone that's doing large scale color work and they're willing to do your blackout and you've seen their large scale color healed,
fresh and healed are two different things.
I'd be going for that before I'd be going for a black and gray realism person.
This one isn't some of the stuff in here could have been scar tissue that's raised from what was underneath of it.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because what was underneath of it is pretty fucking terrible.
Yeah, and just some of the shapes that you're seeing in here, they look like old tattoo shapes.
Potentially, but the technique is definitely flawed.
Oh, for sure.
You can tell because there's different depths of black here.
Yeah.
Right? So some of this could be the mag too, fucking them up. It's not good work. Let's be clear. It's not the worst I've seen.
No, I've seen worse
This guy is definitely thinking it's worse than it is. some of this, like some of the problem with this is when you have these old scarred tattoos, and there was guaranteed to be some amount of scar tissue in that.
Yep.
With Buddy learning on your arm, is that like putting a flat black over top of a very textured tattoo just gives you a bigger problem because now there's nothing to hide the scar tissue.
And you can see all of those textures.
Yeah,
and it is so annoying.
Like when I had the blackout arm on my right arm in particular, but some on my left arm, like you could see the outline of Spawn's face over here, but there was nothing masking it. Is like the black is almost just going to put like a highlight on that because everything that's raised is going to look different than everything that isn't.
Yeah, and shiny.
So, and some of this, as it heals, will not be as noticeable. Like this chapped texture that you have here, that's going to go away to some degree, but the depth, the darkness of the lines there may not fully because that's covering some kind of scar tissue.
Yeah, and scars, they react to tattoo different than typical skin.
Yeah,
they puff up and look mad longer.
To be treated differently. But I don't think that you are best served to have a blackout tattoo over this. And not everyone is an ideal candidate for blackout. This is something that, again, it's not just black. Like you should look at what you're covering and go, how scarred is it? Is this gonna like a better answer to this, which is also a more expensive answer to this, would be the old school Ricky style cover up, right? Where he's looking at the scar formation, he's looking at what's there, and he's working around it to try and distract away from it. And those guys are harder to find than even a competent black worker.
Yeah,
like finding a Rick is harder than finding a Terry.
A really good cover up artist.
That's not to say that like technically like they're both very good, but like Terry, when he looks at a cover up, it's too much information.
Yeah.
Right. It's too much going on, and for him, it's like, can we just black it out?
Yep.
But like this is not a great candidate for blackout because there's too many fucking scar formations, I think.
But how do we fix this going forward?
Well, I mean, you could do the rest of the arm, and you can fucking go over it with color on black designs and stuff, because you can't really see the scar tissue in my arm anymore because it's disguised by the rose petals and stuff, right? Same over here. There's that Spawn face, the scar is not gone.
No.
You just can't see it because there's too much going on.
It's being distracted away from.
So
I agree with that.
A more complicated, elaborate design is going to be the approach, and it's going to cost quite a bit of money. And I'm sorry if you don't want to hear that, but cheaping out on something that's textured like this, whether it was from the blackout or the old tattoos, doesn't matter. It is what it is. There's no quick, easy answer to this. And laser won't help you either.
No. Because laser doesn't get rid of scar texture.
So like the people who go, oh, well, why laser instead of black? Okay, so laser will just make this problem even worse, if you ask me. Because what laser will do is it will remove the ink from the scars, and you'll still have the outlines of the scar tissue. So say this net or fish net or whatever the fuck this shit is up here, say that's all scarred in, and you laser it all, you do the 2-3 years it might take you to laser it all, and now you just have the skin colored version of the scar rather than the black.
Same problem.
And it's actually a worse problem because now it looks like you have like a skin disease or something.
Yeah.
Right? It's like there's no easy out to a cover up like this, and blackout will probably make the problem more apparent, but you would be able to go out over it with something that would hide it later, potentially. And because it is hard to say, I think some of the trauma was there. I think some of it is that when you're covering scar tissue, it's easier to do damage too.
Yeah.
So like even if the guy did a half decent job, which I think he did a half decent job, it's just that when you're not used to covering scars and working around scars, it's very easy to upset them, and you have to be sensitive of them.
Yep.
So there are, like for example, Rick has done a lot of scar tissue cover up, right? So Terry will, when he sees something heavily scarred, he'll go, oh yeah, Rick does these, and he'll kind of point him in there directly. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
and this is only 21 days healed.
It's gonna settle out.
It's gonna, those scars aren't going to be,
but it's gonna be
shiny forever.
Still will be.
They'll be there.
Textured.
Yeah.
But it won't be this bad. So, and I would think that if he's watching this now, it probably already looks a little more tame than it did But I think that the answer to this is it's going to be, since you've already done the start of the blackout, you're probably going to have to do the whole arm this way.
Yep.
Just doing part of it isn't going to go far enough, and then you can go a similar path and hide some of the scars, and I would think a fairly elaborate design would serve you best.
Yeah.
So.
And I really agree with Rem. Like, I'm going to point this out where it's really apparent where this ends. You can see the line of the scar.
You can follow the design.
Yeah, you can follow the design. I don't think this is fully, like, the artists that blacked this out. I don't think they fully fucked you up. I think a lot of this was there.
Well, yeah, but, like, you can see in the black where it's patchy.
Yep.
And, like, it's patchy in particular movements, too.
Yep.
The mag technique wasn't perfect.
Nope.
They did an all right job, but it's definitely not a great job.
Yeah.
It's just there was a lot of trauma here, and they probably weren't used to dealing with that. And so you get a fairly, traumatized result.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. So there's fault on both sides, the first and second artists, but I think probably more on the first one.
That's what I think too.
I would be heading towards a very proficient cover-up artist once you have the
full black and maybe shop around a bit for
it's
someone.
It's too late to do the Rick approach where you do like a full cover-up from scratch. Now you got to commit to the blackout, I think. I don't think there's any way around it. So it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. And shop around for your blackout guy a little bit. So here's another long one.
Yeah, another waffle.
This says, "Hey Remy, I reached out on YouTube asking about how many passes you thought it would take to fix a tonality issue from having my first pass of a blackout sleeve done in 3 sessions with 3 different black inks. Oof. This photo is not from..."
That's so hard for that to even happen.
Yeah. This photo is not from the 3rd pass that I talked about because it is healing currently, but from the 2nd pass. The 2nd pass, we begin using the same ink. The ball of my shoulder is only part of my sleeve that has every pass done in the same ink. The other 2 sections highlighted had the first pass done in different black ink each. For context, the artist who started my first pass was a dick and decided he would experiment on me with 2 different black inks.
That's fucking dirty.
In 2 different sessions. First session, we hit the bicep, tricep area. Second session, we did the whole forearm. To make matters worse, he lied about it, so I didn't know he used 2 different inks until the forearm started
This is what
healing.
I always say when people are wondering how we do black on black.
Yeah.
You will notice the difference in the extremities of things.
Yeah. Then it was evident one had a bluish tint and the other had a greenish tint. I found a new artist to take over. He started using Panthera Triple Black or Triple X. I don't know what it's called exactly, but he finished this
Triple
first
X,
pass.
yeah.
It's Triple X. I think that's the best for blackout in my opinion.
If you're not planning on doing anything later, then yeah, I would probably just go with it.
Yeah, and then continued using the same ink to give me a second and now 3rd pass over the entire arm, trying to cover up the color difference. If you'd like me to send photos once the 3rd pass is healed, I can also. Sorry for the dirty mirrors.
So this is a fairly easy one for me to answer, believe it or not. And like, I'm gonna need like a real close-up here. Because like, it doesn't really look that much different. There is some stuff going on here, but I think there's like a hyperfixation that's happening too.
Yeah.
I think that the problem is much less apparent than he believes it to be. Like when you look at your own shit all the time, and to be fair, like I'm the same way. Like I see things that probably aren't that big of a deal myself, but like most people don't look at their shit. Like most people think they've got like a perfect black arm, and meanwhile it's dog shit.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't believe how many people I've seen. They're like, I need a second, and like it looks like a train wreck.
But I think like what we have, this looks fine.
The problem is that dirty mirror, right?
Yeah.
Like that shit is making it harder to say, because like how much of this is like there's some stuff in there that is a little weird, but then a lot of it is this splotchy mirror.
Yeah.
Like this one would be better served with a really clear photo, especially when I'm trying to pick out the difference in black. I think it's like when you have green, so let's say your arm is green, and you black it out, now some of that green is going to strip through, right? So then you might need a second pass of the black. It's basically the same thing with this,
Yeah.
but only the difference is slighter. Like if you have a dynamic black arm, and now you're putting, and you've done 2 passes on it, we'll say it's super solid dynamic black arm, and now you're trying to turn it Panthera black, I think the answer is you're probably going to have to saturate the whole thing twice.
Yeah.
You can do, like some artists will tell you that once you have a full color tattoo, whenever you black it out, it won't be as black as it could have been if it was done over negative space. That's a big belief in the deep black worker community. Like a hood type character will believe that, like, once the black is once the arm has been tattooed, it won't be as black if you cover it as it would have been if you went straight over negative. Like, that's a commonly held belief. I don't really agree with that, and the reason why I don't agree with that is because, like, if that were true, you wouldn't really be able to get these black on black outlines and stuff that I have. I just think that it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because you're mixing inks. That's what you're doing. It's the same problem as, like, people not believing you can do color on black.
Yeah.
It's like if you put enough red into that black, well, now it's red.
Yeah.
Right? It just is. And we've proven this a million times. And not only that, but you can do that with any shade of red you want. Now, the same is true with different colors of black, right? It just might take more than one pass.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think if you had wanted to originally go the easy route, you would have saturated the whole arm in the first color of black, and then the second color of black, and then done the whole arm in the third color of black, and then you would have had a uniform finish. But I think you're going to do the same amount of work if you just cover it in XXX a couple times until it's a bucket, and if you just keep filling the bucket with that XXX black, it's going to even out.
Because like the thing is like what's happening is theoretically, like, you have all these different colors making up the black inks, right? So like if the first one had a blue base, then you're putting in we'll say it's a green base black. You're still mixing your green base with the blue in there, and so it's not going to be the true color that it is normally until you have more of the new pigment than you have of the old pigment. And this applies for black inks as well, right? It's not, people think that black is unique in this, like, oh, well, black is black. Well, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
And the only way you're ever going to see that is in the extremes of things. Like, put your black next to Ashlyn's arm, and they both look nice, but they both are almost a different color, right?
But me and Ashlyn have different blacks.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
We also have different skin tones.
Yeah, but like what I'm saying is, like, black is not black. Like, people think in tattooing, well, that's black, it's black. Like, you wouldn't believe how many people think this way. And then you explain to them how black on black works, and it's like, well, won't it just blend into the other black?
Even on my own arm, and it was completely an accident, like 100%. So my pumpkin arm was done with Panthera XXX, but at some point it was a while between.
Yeah, he used his dynamic triple black.
So one of my pumpkins, at least one of my pumpkins, is stipple shaded in the dynamic black, and it's not super apparent, but I can tell the difference.
I can see it.
Yeah, it's he's like a blue black, and then the rest of my black is like a
you
gray
would
black.
only ever really notice it if you had them both next to each other in large amounts.
Yep.
So, like, for example, if that whole arm was done in dynamic triple black, right? Like, you wouldn't notice as much. Like, if one pumpkin was done with Panthera black, or, you know what I mean? Like, you would only notice in the extremes of things. So, like, if you draw a black line on someone's skin and there's no other black in there, it's going to look pretty fucking black. But if you put a different black next to it, you're going to see the difference in those blacks, right? Like, it's not like to say that one isn't sufficiently dark or black or good enough for, like, a black and gray tattoo. It's just when you're in the extremes of, like, a lot of black next to a lot of another color of black, then you will notice a slight difference in them.
I just think doing a couple soft passes over this arm with your Panthera Your triple black.
You just got to overwhelm the old pigments.
Yeah, and like.
But like, I don't even see it that much.
I don't see it that much either. It might just be these photos.
These photos are so hard to say, right? Like, and it could be mostly in his head, or these photos could be terrible.
Yeah.
But there is, like, if this was a thing, there is a reason for it too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the colors are different, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure in real life you can see, if you look close, you can probably see even more of that. But like, if we were to do, we took a person, brought him in here, and we did the same arm, same artist, with dynamic black, allegory, and then Panthera, and you did it in like big chunks. Mm-hmm. You would have a 3-tone arm.
For sure.
You would for sure have a 3-tone arm. They would not look the same.
Yep.
Like, even
and
with
that's
the
what
exact.
they're saying.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that is a thing that could happen, even though I'm not really seeing it with this one so much. I think probably. You know, whatever was done with this new artist smoothed out most of the inconsistency, and if there is any left, it's slight, and he's probably making more of it than there is. But the same rule would always apply. Like, you could go over, and same thing, if you went over that whole thing, the 3-tone arm, if you did like a red over top of all of that, you would be able to see. I would wager you would see a slight variance in the quality of the red as well, because it's interacting with different colors in the blacks.
Yep.
So like, if there's more blue in one, more green in one, more yellow or whatever, then that red is mixing with whatever's in that black. It's not necessarily just mixing with flat black.
No.
Right. So you would have a different warmth or coldness of red. All of it is like more. This is where it's more science and more like technical stuff than it is art. Like, realistically, tattooing is more like an experimental kind of science than it is an art, I think, sometimes.